the ninth episode of the Happiness Project, and thank you for tuning in. As you all know, that my podcast is now listed on 8 plus platforms, including Google, Apple, and Spotify. And with this staunch support from you guys, it is reaching to so many places and so many people all over the world. Please keep sharing all your learnings and experiences of how my podcast has transformed your life in every little way possible. Recently, in a conversation between Michelle Obama and Oprah Winfrey on Oprah's show Soulful Conversations, Oprah asked her about a running theme of advice that she gives her daughters. She said that she advises them to walk their own walk. They cannot define themselves by looking at each other or looking at me or their dad. They have to take their time to get to know themselves. Give themselves a moment to figure out who they want to be in the world and not who they think I want them to be, not what the rest of the world says about them, but to really think about how they want to shape their lives and how they want to move in this world. So I don't want them measuring themselves by external influences, and for young girls that is going to be hard to do. On this note, I want to remind you all that wherever that you are, whatever difficult phase that you're going through, trust that everything is coming to an end. Trust that this experience is yours. Own it and grow through it. Do not compare your walk of life to someone else's walk of life, because life has a funny way to work out just when you start believing in it. So have this unwavering faith that life is working towards getting out the best in you. So moving on to the episode today, which is on stress management. I already know of so many people who stress out on the word stress. So let's take a moment. I want you to pause this episode and take a few deep breaths before you start listening to the episode today. You're sitting in traffic, running late on time for an important meeting. You're constantly looking at your watch, the clock is ticking. There's a tiny control room in your brain, that is the hypothalamus, that decides to send out an order. Send in the stress hormones. These are the exact same hormones that produce a fight or flight response. You experience a number of symptoms from increased heart rate, sweating, tensed muscles, headache, and anxiety. However, the fight or flight response was aimed at protecting your body from difficult emergency situations to prepare you to react quickly. Unfortunately, many of us experience these symptoms more often than we should. Our body is constantly reacting to everything around us, and stress is a normal reaction that our body experiences when we are confronted with difficulties and challenges. Understand that stress is not a bad thing. It is a motivator and a survival instinct. However, stress becomes a threat when this mechanism is triggered quite easily, especially when there are too many stressors a person is dealing with. It can affect your physical, mental, and emotional state of being. You will tend to feel as if everything is out of control. On the other hand, there are certain people who just know how to manage stress. And when you look at them, do you ever feel like they have it all? Or they carry themselves so effectively? Even in difficult situations, they tend to stay calm and composed, and you wonder how. And you will be surprised to know that it's simply a difference in the thought process. It's because some people think that they don't have enough resources to cope up with stress and are more likely to have a stronger reaction to events, and some others just have the belief that everything is going to work out for the best. And these people act out of acceptance that certain events are not in our control. And very importantly, they also understand that stressing over anything can only lead to anxiety, compulsive thoughts, and worrying, which is not an effective way to deal with stress. What's important is to recognize when there is excessive demand on ourselves. Sometimes the demand is from the outside, but most of the time stress occurs when we are ourselves demanding more than we know we should. This could be a warning sign, and even before you know it, you can also take some action to prevent yourself from experiencing a heightened state of stress. Look, stress is an inevitable part of our lives, but trust me, we can have much more control over stress than we think. It is a realization that I am in control of my life and that it is the very foundation of stress management. Simply by forming a habit of checking on yourself can keep you balanced. By being aware of your thoughts, behavior, patterns, and what impact it has on you in your day to day life, can make it easier for you to cope up with stress. Often, understanding the reason you're feeling stressed will help you figure out a way to deal with life's problems. Let us do an exercise here. I want you to reflect on a few questions related to stress and make a note of it. You can quickly grab a pen and a paper, or if you're maintaining a journal, you can note all of the answers down there. Question 1. I want you to reflect on a recent emotional or physiological impactful stressful event that you perceived to be negative. How did you cope up with that event? Do you think you could have dealt with it in a better way? If yes, how? And what were the challenges that you faced? Question 2. Now imagine a stressful situation that you believe you coped with positively. Can you identify some coping strategies you used? Can you determine whether you were able to grow through the experience? Question 3. What are some major life events you have experienced? Can you identify any differences in how you coped in these events? Now that you have answers to these questions, I want you to know that stress is related to both external and internal factors. External factors can be physical, environmental, job related, relationships, family, situations, events, challenges, and expectations that we encounter on a daily basis. Internal events are your ability to deal with stress, your ability to respond to stress, how you handle stress, or how you perceive stress to be. Internal factors usually control your emotional, physical, and mental well being. In order to manage stress, we need to be able to strengthen our ability to deal with stress, as we don't have control over the external events. However, we surely have control over our response to stressful situations. So, the first step here is to limit unnecessary stress. Understand the difference between healthy stress and unhealthy stress. Yes, some stress can't be ignored and it needs to be addressed. However, you will be surprised at the amount of stressors you can eliminate on a daily basis. For instance, learning to say no in your personal and professional life. Most of us struggle to say no because we fear rejection or don't want to come across as a self centered person or uncertain about the other person's response. People pleasing has been rooted in us since our childhood. To start reclaiming your time and your mental well being by saying no more, tune into what it is that you really want. Instead of saying yes on impulse, get into the habit of asking yourself, am I agreeing this for me? Start with small things such as when your friend invites you to a party you don't want to go to, or if someone asks you for an insignificant favor. Learn to recognize what saying yes and no feels like in your body. Yes might feel expansive, while no might feel contracting. Learn to pay attention. Saying no will allow you to say yes to significant things. It also allows you to be a better person, where your yes is well thought out and it comes from a place of rationality. So stop taking more than you can handle to avoid stress by simply starting to say no, and don't be sorry for it. Secondly, cut down on your to do list, which already is overwhelming enough. You can't create longer to do lists and organize them. The key here is creative abandonment. The key is to stop doing things. The only way you can have your life under control is by not doing things of lower value and focus on doing only a few things of higher value. So, whenever you sit down in the morning and create a to do list, you must also mentally create a not to do list. Sometimes you look at the items on your list and say, would it matter at all if this were done in the first place? And if the answer is no, don't do it. Or at least don't do it until the things that matter are done. Else you will experience ongoing chronic stress over anything and everything. Next, limit the amount of time you spend with people who stress you out. Sometimes some people get out the worst in you, and you know it by your own reaction while you are around them. So it's important to limit your time with such people who stress you out. Simply be aware of how you feel around certain people. When someone is toxic, you need to set clear and firm emotional and physical boundaries around these people. When you catch yourself over investing your time and attention on the people who drain your energy, redirect your investments back to the energy givers, people who get out the best in you. And just before you do that, reset your own energy by taking a few minutes to clear your mind with some deep breaths. Another significant way to effectively manage stress is by altering the situation. We all know that we cannot change the situation, however, we all learn from our mistakes. So, what I mean by altering the situation is by simply taking a step back, figuring out what went wrong, and what can you do better in the future, and how can you try and avoid a similar situation to occur. And even if it does, by learning how to alter a situation, you will be able to manage it effectively. And by reframing your problems and trying to view stressful situations from a more positive perspective will help you adapt to stress. By asking yourself, will this matter to me in a week's time? And if the answer is no, then you need to focus on all the significant things at hand. And lastly, how you talk to yourself makes a huge difference in a way you deal with any situation. Self talk can be positive or negative. Talking negatively to ourselves only increases stress and worry, whereas positive self talk will calm you down and help you look through different perspectives. With practice, we can shift the negative thought patterns to positive ones. For instance, I can't do it. Do I can, and I will give it my best shot. Or I hate it when this happens. Do this has happened before, and I know how to deal with this situation better now. By practicing positive self talk every day, you will learn to shift your inner dialogue to be more uplifting and encouraging. You can also engage yourself into a variety of stress buster activities like painting, reading, running, meditating, therapeutic cooking, or as simple as practicing grounding and deep breathing exercises. The key is to find your groove and make it work for you. You will be amazed at how quickly you may start to feel better once you disrupt the cycle of stress. Thank you for joining me this week on the Happiness Project. Stay tuned and make sure you never miss a single episode of this show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for all your support. And if you like this episode, please share it with as many people as you can, because sometimes all it takes is one push for someone to transform their lives. Let this podcast be that push.